Hello there, it's me Tom, and today we're going to look at my track Laputa. I've split this up into 4 sections. So we've got drums, mastering, synths and samples, and I'm sure if you've watched all of these you're getting quite bored of this intro as I am of saying it. But this video is going to be on the samples, which is probably the biggest part of the track. This is obviously excluding the drum samples, so buckle in. So this track actually samples a couple of pieces. So primarily I got the kind of original sample from the theme, I think it is, for Castle in the Sky, which is why the track is called Laputa, because that's what it's called, which is this song here. And the bit I sampled is and that actually stretches all the way over here as well. Really nice piano intro. So, yeah, basically my inspiration was like, I really like this sample, and then I went and I warped it, and it sounded really nice slowed down. So that's kind of where this low end sounds came from, and this is sort of like initially what I thought was going to be the bass in this track, but it's very this deep atmospheric sound that really sounds great. And essentially that's that kind of string note that you just heard stretched out. If we take a look at the sampling, yeah, so what I've done is I've pitched it down an octave, and it's not warped, so that means it's linked to time, and that's what's stretched out to be really slow. So pitching it down an octave was quite a friendly thing for me to do, as I knew I wanted to keep the piano notes in, and I knew that they would be harmonised. It can often be tricky when you're working with samples to know actually what key you're in a lot of the time, so I was just kind of playing it safe with that. So if we take a look at some of the other samples from this, I mean, I'm probably just going to skip over a lot of the processing, but you can see this is sidechained and EQ'd. So we've got this piano sound here, which is kind of the main meat of the melodies in the track. And I sent this to a delay, which you're not going to hear without it. And it's just really thick, you know, all the way up with the dry wet. And that's what kind of adds a lot of this atmosphere. So things I automated on this was the reverb size to kind of bring out the sound, so that when I wanted the track to be more dramatic and, you know, kind of a lot more dense in its space, then that's the effect we had. I think this is in the big breakdown. That's what this is. Yeah. And actually, I let a lot of this sample just play straight out from the song. I don't think this is even processed that much. It might be slowed a bit, yeah, and pushed down a bit. But combining lots of these elements together is what made the breakdown, I think, work so well. So we've also got this thing here. Which was, you know, just the same thing, but pitched down dramatically. And then what I did was this thing, which I'm not actually sure I did it looking back on it, but I remember feeling quite clever when I did it. So it's just the same track duplicated 4 times, and we've got this sound. And then that echoes out, and then on the next track, you've got the next note, and then so forth. I think the idea here was just to keep them clean, but I honestly think if I just had them on the same track it would sound fine. But it does offer a nice amount of control. That's always one of the things of processing and laying out lots of tracks for yourself. You know, the more you do of it, the more control you have, whether you use it or not. It's kind of the whether it's worth it question there. So we've got this guitar sound as well from the track. I think it says delay guitar. It might actually be piano. Yeah, there you go, because it's kind of linked to the piano bit as well. But you can see this, it's been mid-side EQ'd as well, to kind of bring out the sides in it. That seems pretty straightforward. So this is actually, yeah, I think this is dry from the song, because this harp, I think it's a harp. Bit I'm looking for. That kind of harpy sound at the end there. And I've used it a bit better here. And then I want to say I changed the pitch of these at one point, like it changes pitch. I'm not entirely sure. I know I changed something about it. Oh, that's right. I changed the delay time. So yeah, this beat delay here. So you get this kind of weird ripply effect when it's on 3, and I thought it sounded a bit weird coming with that, but initially that's what I went with and I really liked it, so I kind of led it from one into the other. So that's that bit, and that sounds just really atmospheric and really nice, and it was a nice way to kind of spice up the second section. The idea was to kind of bring more elements into the second section, more melodies, and you know, because initially you got this kind of stifled sound to it. Which is cool, you know, it's a really laid back kind of trip hop feel that I was initially going for, but then as I wanted to kind of bring more into the song, I thought, you know, there's a lot to be explored with melodies here, and I've got this great set of samples, this great source sample to kind of take melodies and really add a lot. So as we come into it, initially, you know, you immediately notice this extra piano part, and you know, that's a nice little extra melody, it adds a bit of movement to it. And the piano melodies here are actually different. They're not quite as full on as they were before. Probably because I thought they were just, I don't know, a bit too sad. You've also got like the chords on the synth layer up a bit more, but also we've got, in terms of samples, we've got this big warped bass sound here, which I think is actually this sample chucked into Cecilia, stretched out dramatically, and then I probably even stretched it in Ableton a little bit more as well. But yeah, this just capitalized on the texture that I got from that initial kind of string sample that I was really digging in the low end, and I thought, you know, let's just take it further and really stretch this across so that, you know, it's this kind of constant thing, because, you know, this bit's moving and changing sound, but what I really want is this rich texture here at the bottom of the track, which might get a little bit muddy in places. I think I've gone about EQing it so that the low end isn't too bad. So what else have we got to point out in samples? I actually sampled another piece of anime music by Joe Hishashi, I think it is, which is this track from Princess something, I can't remember her name. The new one that they put out last year anyway. I think this is actually the sample loads and pitched. That's what it should sound like. So initially that sound appealed to me a lot. And I actually tried to work with that little piano loop for ages, which is where one of the other sounds comes from, I'll show you in a second. And then that pitch down is what we get, the really slow kind of thing going on. And I used that at the start for that initial string thing that I was talking about. So you get those first few notes from. And they really kind of suited the kind of, what's the word, I guess, ominous kind of feature to the track. It was just very dramatic and I really liked it. So then we've got this, which is aptly named Do 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 Do, which is that piano bit I was talking about. And this, I actually really enjoyed doing this as a bit of sound design. It was really fun. So it's very much automated to come in because I didn't want it coming in too strong. So if we skip forward a bit, you can see I've automated stuff like this frequency here and the gain and stuff and the delay as well, actually. Wow, that is very quiet. Now, I want to say, yeah, so initially pitched down this, it sounds like... And it's also warped by beats as well, which is where it gets that weird kind of grainy stretch quality to it. I know I did something else to it as well. Yeah, so there you go. In this bit, you can actually kind of hear that it's from the piano initially. Just very dramatically processed and warped. I think it's the case that this bit's made faster and that bit's made slower. I think that's what it is. But any rate, in the breakdown, that sounded really nice. There's this extra kind of quality. If I was to change anything about this now, I probably would bring it out a bit more on the sides. You can see I've sent it like to 200% in its width. I think that's a bit dramatic. What I really should have done was just EQ the sides a bit to kind of capitalize on that. And then I also had this, which I think is either the first version or the second version of that sound. It's very similar, but it's the same sample, but less dramatically processed. And this was a real pain in the arse, I gotta be honest, getting this sample right, because just this piano loop just did not match the tonality of the track, so it really took a lot of work. But you can see the kind of dramatic cuts there. The thing is, like, soloed, you can kind of hear the sampling and you can hear the kind of audio cuts, but it drowned in the whole track. It just... Okay, apart from that one where I brought the volume up, but... Like, when you can't see it happening on the screen, I find it kind of disguises it a lot more. Right, and the last sample I'm going to talk about is this rain sample, and everyone loves a good rain sample, just for being a hipster, pretty much. Nothing dramatic about this. It's slowed. I think I processed that in Cecilia rather than Ableton, yeah, it's just a rain sample. Something about rain samples is they're so dramatic sounding, and with a bit of reverb on as well, it's just like, it just really kind of filled it out a lot. If we get rid of it, I don't know if and it also, like, it was just another dynamic to come down at the end and really emphasize this outro, which took a lot of kind of getting right. But it was where I was able to let a lot of the kind of samples reach their cadence in terms of tonality, so that was nice. Basically what you're hearing now is kind of lots of the samples I just showed you stretched out dramatically, but then left to play out. And like here, where is it? These piano notes, they sound really great stretched out, and it was just like, it works so well as an ending to the track. It was very fortunate. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We'll now go on to look... well, now I'll go and do the next video. But thanks for watching.